On the morning of June 21st, 2025, while much of the world carried on unaware, a quiet miracle was unfolding in the heart of West Africa. At exactly 10 a.m., a siren rang out across the dusty landscapes of Burkina Faso, just the sound of shovels hitting earth. In exactly 60 minutes, more than 5 million trees were planted. Because what happened in that 1 hour was unprecedented. A country once labeled as hopelessly arid did the unthinkable. From classrooms to mosques, from army bases to desert villages, men, women, children, elders, and soldiers all moved in rhythm, planting not just saplings, but seeds of dignity, unity, and hope. At the center of it all stood a man who didn't give long speeches. He didn't beg for aid. He simply led by action. President Ibrahim Traoré, a military captain turned revolutionary figure, now shocking the world. Not with weapons or war, but with roots and water, with a belief that real change begins with hands in the soil. This was more than environmentalism. This was defiance. It was a nation reclaiming its future, quietly, powerfully, and without permission. So the question is, why did they do it? How did they do it? And why are global powers suddenly nervous about what just happened in the Sahel? This wasn't just a government program. It was a resurrection of a dream. One first spoken decades ago by Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader, Thomas Sankara, who warned, "If we do not replant the land will bury us." That dream was nearly buried with him. But in 2025, Captain Traoré dug it back up and gave it roots. Under his directive, the National Tree Day was no longer symbolic. It became a full-scale operation involving all 45 provinces. Ministries, schools, religious institutions, and military units were mobilized. People trusted not just for what they knew, but for how deeply they cared. From the dry northern deserts of Udalan to the fertile southern fields of Bobo Dioulasso, entire communities lined up with tools in hand. In the capital, Ouagadougou, and these weren't random trees. Most were native, medicinal species, baobab, neem, moringa, chosen not just for their ability to hold soil and fight erosion, but for their healing power. In Traoré's Burkina Faso, reforestation wasn't just an environmental strategy, it was cultural revival, a return to indigenous medicine, local knowledge, and self-sufficiency. President Traoré, flanked by school children and university volunteers, didn't hold a press conference that day. He planted trees, quietly. Burkina Faso showed the world something they weren't expecting, that even a so-called poor nation, often dismissed by global powers, could orchestrate a high-tech, high-impact national campaign without needing anyone's permission. Each planting station was more than just a location. It was a local hub, organized and led by everyday citizens. School teachers, nurses, retired elders, local chiefs. These eco-leaders weren't just trained in planting techniques. They were trained to inspire, to mobilize, to remind their people, this land belongs to us, and so does its healing. The Ministry of Environment deployed a digital backbone, combining satellite imagery, GPS mapping, and real-time uploads through the Green Map Faso app. A homegrown solution that tracked not just where trees were planted, but what species were used, how much moisture the soil retained, and which zones needed follow-up. It's the kind of digital infrastructure many wealthier nations struggle to build. But in Burkina Faso, it wasn't just possible, it was done. With urgency, with unity, and with astonishing coordination across villages that, in many cases, had never been connected before. Farmers who had once seen their land turn to dust could now open a simple mobile interface and see, here, 300 baobabs were planted. Here the soil is regaining moisture. Here a new grove is being formed. This wasn't just data. It was proof that healing was happening in real time. For a country that had lost so much to desertification, nearly 40% of its land scarred by the advancing Sahel, this wasn't just progress, it was resurrection. Technology didn't replace tradition, it amplified it. It allowed ancient practices like medicinal planting, spiritual land rituals, and community farming to be reimagined through a 21st century lens. And through this fusion of wisdom and innovation, Burkina Faso made its message clear. The future will not be outsourced. It will be grown, locally, communally, and sustainably. If your country had just 1 hour to prove its worth, what would it plant? Not just in the ground, but in the hearts of its people. So now we ask you, what would your country do? And what would you do if the land beneath your feet asked you to choose between complaint and cultivation, between despair and dignity, between being remembered for what you suffered or what you planted? Think about it. Not later. Now.